Good stuff.
Okay, so it is 12 o'clock now, and I'd like to welcome you all to this session with Ross McWilliam of Mindset Pro. My name's Sarah Powell. I'm the Inclusion and Diversity Manager at Kaplan. I'm thrilled to launch this mental fitness session and for you to all be here with us to attend. So I can see we've got about 60 of you. Thank you so much for giving your time with us today. I know that you will find this session of immense benefit to you. And those of you who've attended some of our previous sessions, I know that you'll completely agree with what I've just said there. We are recording the session today. We don't record any comments, but we do make this available for people after the session. So, you know, if you are short of time and can only attend part of it, you know, don't worry. The rest of it will be sent to you after today. So today, hopefully, you've all got bright sunny skies like I've got here, and you know, we are looking forward to hopefully restrictions easing further come the end of next week. So I know that we started these sessions when we're in the thick of lockdown, and hopefully they've supported you as we've gone through this journey together. But things are definitely looking up for us all, and hopefully these sessions have really helped you. So I'm going to pass over to Ross, and he's going to be taking you through your best year yet. I'm really actually excited to think about what he's going to come out with here, and you know, great time to do this at the beginning of a new year and thinking about, you know, what we can do strategically and tactically to plan our year ahead. So thank you, Ross, for joining us again, and I'll hand over to you now. Do feel free to put any questions in the chat panel as we go through. I will be monitoring that and picking up on those as we go through, but Ross is more than happy if you do have a question just to interrupt him as we go through as well. So hope you enjoy the session, and over to you, Ross.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it's feeling good to be here again with Kaplan, and we've got, you know, just less than 45 minutes to talk to you guys. I'll be putting some slides up, but I'll try and come out of them so you can see me as well, so you know I'm there, and just feel at ease and relaxed. And I'm sure there's a lot of things here that you might find very useful. Okay, so that's our title today. And the next slide. As Sarah said, your best year yet. And these are a few tips I've sort of gleaned over the years for also strategic, looking down on something, yeah, making some plans, and tactical, actually doing something. So the combination of the two together, I think I can give you a few good shortcuts here if you want to make some big changes. Okay, I always start off with a group agreement. And it's to say, I want you to feel safe and secure, ask your questions, it's confidential. And just respect each other. So as we go along, enjoy, relax, and if we enjoy and relax, we'll probably learn better with that dopamine firing in our brain. Okay, so questions. Why are you here today? And I'm going to talk about this in terms of why motivation. You might have heard that before, but that's something that I'm going to be talking about in terms of your innermost why. It's very important we get that sorted for us. Second bit is, you probably want to change something about yourself, your professional outlook, and that's something we can help you with certainly today. And you're here now, so you're making an active positive step already. So your chances of success are actually higher because you're here now. So that's a positive thing to find straight away. Mark Zuckerberg, some people like him, some people really don't like him. He talks about his New Year's resolutions to read one recommended book every 2 weeks. His first book, The End of Power by Moses Naim. I've never read that one, and maybe one day I might do. Brian Halligan, the CEO of HubSpot, he talks about time to think and reflect. And I see a lot of professionals often don't do that. What about this chap, Simon Cowell? Yeah, he says about time with family and friends and animals, they make you happier than gyms. It's interesting, isn't it? I tend to go outside quite a bit from exercise these days. The Chartered Management Institute often does surveys about people's goals for the year in January, and they have a list of top resolutions from 1,200 managers, and they talk about the top 3 is honing an edge for your continuing professional development. That's one of the top ones for our professionals like you guys in this cohort. getting that balance between work, rest, and play. And if you've been on the previous webinars, we talked about the second richest man in the world, Jeff Bezos. He was the richest till he got divorced, but he talks about a work-life harmony, not a balance. And a balance is where he says you could do well at one, but you lose at the other. And he wants a work-life harmony. And he'll say, you know, when you've got it, when you walk into a room and people smile and their faces light up when they see you. The last one, you might have a resolution to support your team, develop their skills. So all these are valid reasons why people want to change, and they'll help their lives. But there are some barriers. And the first one was on Monday. It was called Blue Monday. It's generally the third Monday in January. But if I told you 33% of people will fail the New Year's resolutions by that Blue Monday, yeah, it's a fantastic amount. Is it the media influence that makes us a bit down and depressed for that? And I read some interesting articles about stress and how stress is a negative factor. But as a researcher in Stanford University, Alicia Crum, and she talks about, let's change our relationship with stress. Let's look at it as a positive if you get the right levels of frequency, intensity, and duration. And it's the same with looking at Blue Monday. Let's look at this Blue Monday and maybe say, let's call it a Gold Monday. What can I achieve? And I don't know if you know this, but a week last Monday, it was called Massive Monday. And it was called Massive Monday because there was a plethora of jobs out there that people could get their hands into and develop their careers, but nobody ever mentioned it too much. So the media can influence us. And if we start thinking about negative stuff, that can create a negative loop for us. And sometimes we have black and white goals, which are good, but sometimes if we don't achieve them, we see ourselves as a failure. And one of my first learning points I'll say to you today is, why not have maintenance goals? I lost a lot of weight a few years ago, and every year now I just have maintenance goals. It takes the pressure off me straight away. And sometimes when we don't, and it sounds a bit corny, we don't have this self-love for ourselves, we can then criticize everything about ourselves, about our work, or even about our colleagues. So we've got to keep fueling that, believing in ourselves, having that gratitude, and not beating ourselves up too much. And in total, 75% of New Year's resolutions fail. Yeah. So that's a bit scary, isn't it? Only 25% success rate. But I'm going to give you, as I said, some shortcuts today to make you more successful. Okay. Here's the why. So I think it's about our definition of success, or I call it success not yet. Okay. If you don't give up, then you can't fail, which we understand that. But think of it as a journey as the destination, not getting to a destination all the time. And it's a learning experience of constant realignment rather than black or white goals. Yeah, if I've got this or I've got that, it's success. If I haven't got this or haven't got that, then it's not success. And I think we've got to constantly realign where our objectives are, because things change in life. And we talk about a growth mindset, and there was a researcher, a very famous researcher called Carol Dweck, who was very prominent in education. And she coined the phrase success not yet. She didn't talk about failure. She talked about it's success, but it's not yet. And she actually, when she did mention failure, she said, fail fantastically well, learn from that failure. And I think this is a secret to getting success not yet. And you might recognize J.K. Rowling there and all her story of having no money, living in a flat in Edinburgh. Nobody wanted to take a manuscript, 100 refusals. Where is she now? We can't even see her. She's that far in the distance. You might have heard of a guy called Stephen Covey, and some of the top entrepreneurs use this as the business Bible. He talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people. If I put them on the screen for you all at once there, you might relate to some of those you might not have heard of. This is quite generic in some ways, but I've underlined number 2, because I'm a big believer, if you don't know where you're going, how do you know when you're going to get there? Yeah. How are you going to readjust as you go along? Yeah. And I think it's very important to have a good idea where you want to go, be prepared to change a little bit and deviate and go with a thermal, if you want to call it that, a thermal that takes you in a slightly different direction, but you're moving upwards. Yeah. And I think it's very important to actually remember number 2. Okay. Let's move on. Let's get some definites. Let's go to some real experts. Charles Duhigg, I read this book about 10 years ago, The Power of Habit. And I liked it because it wasn't that thick. and it had some nice anecdotes in it. And it talked about these principles of unfreezing a bad habit, changing the behavior, and refreezing a new, better habit. And as a principle, if you look at that now, you couldn't argue with it, because that's what we need to do. And what he said is this: once you do this, it becomes easier to keep doing it. And he's going to give us some tips in a second. So it all revolves around cue, routine, and reward. This is what behaviors are all about. So a habit is an automated behavioral pattern. And if we've got habits that we don't even think about that are automatic and they're benefiting us, we don't use up our willpower. Okay. So this other university, Duke University in America, said 40% of our daily actions are not decisions, we're just responses, like robots in a way. So the secret is to get good habits built in so it's not wearing away at our motivation and willpower. So cue, routine, and reward. Like a mouse in a cage. They click the door, that click is the cue to run to the end of the cage to get the reward, which is the cheese. Okay. Now, interestingly, the brain can't tell between good or bad habits. So you can have quite a few bad habits and do them to your cue, routine, and reward, but you're not recognizing when it's not working for you. So the secret really is, you want to achieve any goal, is learn to observe the cues and rewards and then change the routines in the middle. And change the routines in the middle might get you different, better rewards that serve you towards your goals in the full year. So let me put this in practice for you. Alcoholics Anonymous are renowned for being very highly successful in changing behaviors. Okay. They work on 10 steps, and they have, you might have seen it on TV, on films, they have public meetings, support of other people. You've got to say, I'm Ross, I'm an alcoholic, and there's a routine to go through. There's 12 steps. And they succeed because they shift the routine in between the cues and the reward. Okay. So when they get the cue, I'm feeling like a drink, it's mid-morning, and they think, flipping it, yeah, let's get a drink, because the reward is I'm going to feel good, I'll get out of this pain, and then life will change. But then they say to them, let's change the routine, because that reward is not life enhancing. So they give a different routine. They ask them to think about the rewards from drinking, escape, relief, companionship. And they get these from exercise, growing social friends, whatever, but not from alcohol. So rather than think about being out of it at the end and being spaced out and just getting that fixed, think of the things you're going to miss. So that routine of going to a drink is replaced by the thought, I'm doing these other activities that's going to help me get to where I want to be in life. And once you adopt these alternative routines, it becomes easy to break that bad habit. Okay. There's two guys. You want to read a book. This is, again, not a long book. These are the godfathers of routine and change. This was out, and they talked about the chimp in this before it became mainstream in this country. This was out in 2011. They come up with 4 big rules, okay, called switch. Change is hard because people wear themselves out. You might relate to that. You try to lose weight and you don't, and then you put weight on and it wears you out. And too many false starts can actually really make you deflated altogether. Some people get to that stage where they're just planning all the time and they have this analysis paralysis. Yeah. And that is something that stifles people. The top business people, they do make mistakes, but they're always driving forward and they're not dwelling too much. It's like driving a car. As a business person, you're looking through the windscreen in the front, but you're dwelling occasionally, look at the side mirrors to reflect quickly, but look back into the windscreen, because otherwise you're going to crash. Rule 2, change is hard because goals are not clearly defined. This goes back to what Stephen Covey said, having the end in mind. And there's a phrase that they call shape the path. And I'm going to give you 2 examples. There was a big campaign in America to get people to shift away from full fat milk into 1% and 2% semi-skim milk, fat-free milk, because it was having a detrimental effect on the nation's health. And so with this campaign, they put the milk there and then they put it next to the tills so people can see them. And it's the last thing they buy. I'm going to get the milk. I remember the advertisement on TV. But when the advertisements came out and they placed the milk in thousands of stores across America, the feedback was that the people weren't changing the behaviors. Yeah. So what they had to do to shape the path, they had to put a picture of bacon next to the milk to say, this is the amount of fat you'll be saving by having this milk each week, each month, each year. And that visual reminder at the till made them have that choice point of change from that routine of buying the full fat milk to this routine. Instantly changed overnight. And similarly, there was a guy in America who was, he wasn't a surgeon, but he worked out percentages and stats of successful hospitals and surgeons. And he came up with a 12-point plan for heart surgery. And he reckoned that this plan was so efficient that why isn't everybody using it? And there was many reasons why they weren't using it, but the main was that they didn't know about the 12 steps that this guy had created. So he transferred it all across to the hospitals in America, did a rolling roadshow of telling them how to use this operation and procedures, simple things, but put together very impactful. And within 10 years, the death rate by cardiovascular disease and operations went down significantly. So he talks about shaping the path, showing people what you need to do. Change is very hard sometimes, but we can't see the end results. And it's like going on a good diet and you have the nice food and stuff, but does it make you feel better sometimes? Can you see your weight loss instantly? No. And people get disillusioned. And there's an example where a guy was working for a company and he said, you're losing money every month. And he showed him a 3-line account. He said, you're losing money by buying these gloves that are the wrong shape, they don't last long, and they're not fitted. There's too many left to rights. Eventually, he got sick of talking to them, so he brought the gloves on the table, and every second he threw one on the table. We just wasted that amount of money, just wasted this amount of money. And within a minute, had a big pile of gloves on the table. They could see the end result. And the final one is get people to work together. A bit of peer pressure, he said, is very powerful. So that's something that organizations, the smart ones, use. Rather than them to tell people dictatorially what to do, they get the herd to influence behavior. Okay. Fantastic book, this one, Willpower. Roy Baumeister and John Tierney. Very powerful book. If you want to talk about willpower and you think you might have lots of willpower, he said, everybody's got some, nobody's got finite. And I think it's interesting. He did some experiments. And he asked children to sit in front of some marshmallows. He was a horrible fellow, wasn't he? And he said, you could have a marshmallow now, but if you wait 15 minutes, you can have 2. Many of the kids couldn't defer that gratification, and they went for the 1. So in front of them was this distraction, and it wore the willpower out. Then he got clever, and he got 2 groups of people into a room, and he said to them, the first group, there's some cookies. There's a smell of cookies in the room. You can have a few of those cookies. And the other group, you can have the radishes you want, but you can't touch the cookies. All right? Cruel man. They did that for 15 minutes. Then he asked them, he didn't tell them why he was doing this. He asked them both to take a test. And at the end of the test scores, he worked out that the people who had the radishes, who had wanted the cookies, had run out of energy. It's called ego depletion. And they just gave in, caved in, and they couldn't answer the questions properly. They didn't want to try it. They were very rebellious. The ones who had some chocolate, who felt that they've got that ego sorted and they've got some energy, and they felt they were trusted and believed more, they did much better. So it's interesting how we can waste our willpower very quickly, and then we make the wrong choices. Now, a key finding, it gave people the perseverance to continue. Okay, it became quickly depleted and they lost self-control. Glucose, as I mentioned, can replete it. Willpower can be fatigued from overuse, burnout. So it's all right being resilient. Every talk says that word's great, but I think there's a big caveat to keeping going all the time, and we wear ourselves out. Here's another big learning point. Willpower is finite. Even the strongest people run out of it if you don't watch it. Find your motivation. So we need good automatic habits that only use willpower in emergency. So if you're constantly resisting something, in the day, it's going to wear you out. So if you're in a bad marriage and you're working hard in an organization that works against you, not Kaplan, I must add, and kids in the house and the kids have been unruly, you'll have nothing left to achieve any more goals. Yeah? Okay, doing well. Here's an interesting one for you. People spend a quarter of their working lives, hours, resisting desires. Yeah. 1 in 4 are resisting desire at any one time now. Okay. And this is wearing us away. So it could be desire and urge to sleep, eat, leisure, sex, social media. Okay. And the most popular way to stop urges was to get a distraction. Yeah. And when the subjects tried to resist the desire, they were successful 50% of the time. But I don't think people realize that as we go to work with our friendship groups and our work groups, and we have all these targets as well, we're like carrying lots of things around with us. And this urge not to do something, to resist something, can tire us out. This is why being in flow is so powerful. And he talks about other recommendations to stop using up this willpower is stop procrastinating. When we procrastinate and put things off, it tires us out. And so therefore our resistance to bad effects or poor diet choices or not exercising or drinking too much, we become weaker. And it's a human nature. It's not a personal trait. So stop procrastinating and start doing. Get public support. Public accountability can push you right to the edge and beyond of your goals. It's a good thing if you use it in the right way. And bright lines. Bright lines, you can't cross a zero tolerance. I stopped drinking 4 years ago and I haven't touched a drink since. And that is my bright line. I do not drink alcohol. Now, Eric Clapton used not drinking as his bright line to remember his son. And his son tragically fell off a floor in a flat and died. And he stopped drinking then. And that was his bright line, never to drink then, because he remembers his son. So I think some bright lines are very powerful for us. Dieting and food. Baumeister and Tina talk about 3 things. Never go on a diet. It'll just sap your energy and willpower. Never give up your most loved foods, especially chocolate. And they're saying chocolate. Have a bit, have a little bit, whenever you want. Don't make it a habit, okay? But don't deny yourself. And never, let's go back to that one. Never equate being overweight with having weak power. Yeah, that weak willpower is nothing to do with being overweight. There's many reasons beyond that. Okay, we're doing really well. This is an interesting book. It comes out every year. It's the title of our talk today. And in this book, it's that you can write in it and make information and plans and stuff of that nature. I found it interesting. You might want to get it. Jenny Ditzler, Your Best Year Yet. And she talks about the first step is self-control, to set a clear goal. That's what Covey said. That's what Baumeister said. Yeah. And get it allied to why you want to achieve this goal. Yeah. What is the reason why? Don't have too many goals. Okay. That's a problem that many people have, myself included over the years. Build in rewards. Don't see rewards as if you don't deserve them. I actually say in life these days, lower expectations a little bit and counterintuitively raise your rewards. Yeah, it's this self-love on the first slide. I think it's really important. Watch out for conflicting goals. Now, what do I mean by this? So, for instance, if you're exercising, the frequency, intensity, and duration, okay, you're exercising often and very intensely sometimes, you can be too tired when you do your study time. You could be use up all your willpower, then you make bad choices in terms of food. So you might be doing it to lose weight, but it also can work against your progress in terms of your career as well. So working out which goals work for you and which goals work against you. And that's very important. People say they like a social time and they like a drink now and again. That's fine. But if that social time is making you tired, making you a bit softly depressed, make you procrastinate the next day, then it's conflicting to what you want to achieve. Recommendations. Again, one project at one time. If you do too much, you're going to stretch yourself too far. Stick to it. Start with exercise, then kick cigarettes, then alcohol, whatever it is. Don't have multi-goals. People think, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Just do X. When you've done X, do Y. It's like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. It's very important to remember that. So if you look at this, I mentioned this before, and I'm going to come on to this with my personal example shortly, but you might have a target there. And if you have that black and white goal, I must have this goal at all costs and you don't achieve it, or you go off target, as this line suggests, then you might want to give up. I think you need to build in difference and change and deviation into your goals. And some people see it as, if I have that 3 donuts, then the diet's all over. Why bother in the first place? Let's pack it all in. So short-term daily goals gives a sense of achievement. So I want to exercise today and have a good diet, great. And I think that's brilliant. It gives you momentum. But if you look at this, month-to-month plans work better, because you don't interpret a spike, a negative spike, as if to throw it all out. Throw out the baby with the bathwater. I've had a bad day doing this. What's the point? Yeah, if I have 1 drink, I might as well have 10 drinks. The best way to do it is month by month, so you can track your progress and don't let one bad episode or one bad habit make everything else waste of time or devalue it. So track yourself month to month. Okay, so again, I'm going to put these up for you guys, and we've got something on this in the coming months. But in terms of your professional development, you know, if you want to be smart and one of your goals is to pass exams, you know, create a study schedule, get a study buddy who's going to be reliable and test you. Know your learning objectives and practice previous questions with answers, yeah, and get your answers looked at by a professional to make sure you've got the right answers in place. Prioritization, again, this conflicting goals aspect. Remember to love yourself. Remember that self-esteem is our self-worth. We're all going to drop the ball from time to time. We're going to make sure that nobody takes the ball off us permanently. Find a sanctuary, the best place to learn and the best place to relax. And when you hit a bump, link it back to the why. Why am I doing this? Okay, just my personal things here. Like I said, 4 years ago, I stopped drinking. And I stopped drinking because my why power was my health. I was 25 stone, 160 kilograms. And I was slowly, I suppose, killing myself. So my why power was to stay alive and enjoy a better life. Beyond that, I wanted to get through my joint pain better. And I knew that alcohol and weight gain that goes with alcohol and eating poorer foods and poorer sleep and very erratic mood swings went with that territory. And I thought about the why power for it for my health, but I also thought about my parents who had recently passed away. And my why power was to make them proud. So every time I got a bit tired or the goals got a bit conflicting, I thought about these objectives, my health and my parents. The guy in the middle with the L in his head, I didn't see myself as a loser. I didn't compromise my self-esteem if I did something wrong or had a bad day, I had a bad few days. Yeah, I just kept building myself up and recognizing we're all human. My target would like to be the center of 15 stone, and I got there. And I've been there for 2 years. So what I do now, I'm just trying to aim somewhere around that target. I might go up to 16. I don't go over 16. I don't really get down to 15. Maintenance is where I'm at. Public support's helped me. I've had lots of campaigns and I've put the videos on the YouTube site. But equally, the other thing that's helped me as well is having a sanctuary, a place to live that's quiet, that's a good place to speak and learn and engage with company. And I think if you haven't got a sanctuary, it's very hard to make any changes in life. Yeah. Darren Hardy, a very successful author, and one of his books is called The Compound Effect. And it's the small decisions we make every day that ultimately gives us the future success. The problem is we can't often see the results of a bad mistake immediately, like a bad diet, yeah? But over time, bad mistakes are compounded to the point of no return. So there's not one great big single thing you do at one particular moment. It's good habits over time that's going to get you that result. The British Heart Foundation, I'm going to just throw something at you now. They did this a few years ago, find the biggest regrets people have. And it puts them down here, the top 10 regrets. So if you want to find some why power, let's look at these. Yeah, I'm going to put them up slowly and you can take them in. You might relate to some of them. Does anybody tell me what number 1 might be? Anybody in the chat box? Let me get it to number 2. What is the one thing that people regret the most? Can you read that chat box for us, Sarah? Anybody coming in there? Bad choice of career?
I've got nothing at the moment. Give them a couple of minutes. Yeah, Alex has said not being good enough. Danny not being themselves.
Yeah.
Any more comments? Georgia says stressing. Yeah, it's a good one. Charlotte not taking risks. Matt not spending enough time with children. Nilima says no self-love. We've got not taking risks, money worries, not doing what they wanted. Number 8, not expressing your feelings, being honest, not enjoying themselves, being on a diet for too long. We've got some great suggestions.
I'll tell you
Not sleeping enough.
I love the
There's
interactivity.
loads of great stuff. Yeah.
Loads of good content, but I like, as a principle, the interactivity of being able to share, being nicely vulnerable in front of other people. That's a great quality. Let's see what number 1 is. Not traveling enough. Nobody mentioned that. We tend to leave
no, we didn't have that one.
To a rainy day. We think it's sometime in the future. We think we'll have time when we retire, or time in the summer, or time when we've got my friends free and we can do stuff together. But if you look back over that now, you know, do you have any regrets like that? And that's an interesting question, isn't it? And that was done a few years ago from the British Heart Foundation. And it was done from people who sadly died a bit earlier, and they were dying, and these are the regrets they had. Yeah. Yeah,
Ross Lawrence just mentioned a really good book called by Bronnie Ware, The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying.
All right, right. Just remember what the top one was?
Lauren, do you remember what the top one was? I wonder whether it was similar.
Yeah, it depends which sample you're working with.
Okay, no problem, Lauren.
If you put it in the chat box.
Yeah, and I think COVID has affected a lot of this at the moment, hasn't it? For a lot of people.
It has, but I always say this, there's always an upside somewhere. And I think, yeah, it's sad that people have been compromised, it's sad that people have lost their lives, but as a community, as a society, as a world, we can run with this and make changes that might improve our life. And online learning is certainly one of those. But it also might give us a stop where we are these goals, you know, these goals and this new year, new me, is it really, really what I want? Am I doing stuff now that's really not that relevant? Should I reprioritize based on this list some of my goals for this next year? Yeah, because nothing is ever guaranteed. Now, I need a volunteer now. I need a volunteer because I'm doing something interactive. I like doing something interactive. Does anybody in the audience want to volunteer? So you just need to be able to talk to me now. I'm going to ask you, I'm going to create a situation, a scenario, and give you one question. Who wants to do this with me? If we can't get somebody, I'm sure. Amandeep.
Yeah, we've got Matthew has volunteered. Thank you.
All right, Matthew. Right, Matthew. If you're doing it is with us, that's great. But everybody else can do this as well. Okay. So think of the question I'm asking Matthew, and then you can accept it as well. Then I'll give you the reveal at the end. So Matthew, are you there? Can I hear you, Matthew? Ross calling Matthew. Okay.
Matthew's just trying to connect, so maybe just give him a minute.
Okay. Yeah, good. Always be patient. It's a great skill being patient. When you get to 60, you're gonna be very patient. Trust me.
Just while we're waiting to see if it's connect, put a nice comment in about, you know, colleagues leaving the business due to rethinking during COVID. And I think that's something you hear about quite a lot, this sort of job tsunami, you know, people really, particularly in the new year, thinking about, actually, I've had 2 years of this and I'm thinking, actually, is this really how I want to spend the rest of my life?
Yeah. And you know, it's an extra pressure, a resolution, especially when most of them, 75% of them fail. Do you want the extra pressure? That's why I recommend maintenance goals, or just taking stock. And again, if it's a younger person saying that's very mature to recognize, you know, sometimes we work out things when we get too old and it's a bit late, and that's called regret. But I think it's a very mature comment. That have we got Matthew in the room? Okay. Do we want to go to somebody else, like Amandeep was there as well? Can they speak? Because we can all do it. I just like to have someone as a focal point. All right, Amandeep, can you hear me? Can you respond to me?
I'm not sure, Ross, whether this has been set up for participants to dial in. I don't know whether you've done that before on previous ones.
Yeah, we have. People have talked to me.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it doesn't look like it has. Okay, well, maybe we can just do this via the chat panel, or you
I'll
can
tell you
use
what we'll do,
me by all
Sarah.
means.
Being an ex-PE teacher, I'm used to thinking on my feet. I'm going to use it with you, Sarah. Is that
Oh,
okay
I
with
knew
you?
that was going to happen. Go
I
on, go
know,
for
and
it.
that's why you distracted me. Right. Let me paint a picture for Sarah, but the question I'm going to ask Sarah is the same question for everybody else. And then you can put your message in the chat box. So, Sarah, let's imagine that you're 100 years old. Yeah, plenty of time to go. But let's imagine you're 100 years old and you're in your hospital bed and all your family's around you, your children. Yeah. Let's imagine you got 5 children, you got 7 grandkids, about, because you're 100 years old, probably about 15 great grandkids. Yeah. You got all your friends in. It's a big hospital ward. There's about 500 people there, Sarah. Yeah. And you're coming to the end of life. You've had a great life, right? What I'm going to do next, I'm going to count the clock down. I'm going to count from 10 to 1. And when I get to 1, Sarah, you're going to have your moments in your hospital bed to give your final bits of advice or words or observations to all your family in that ward of 500 people. Yeah. So as I'm counting, I want you to think what you're going to say to in your last words on this earth. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, how long have I got?
A second to say your
A
biggest thing.
second. Live your best life.
Okay, so Sarah says, live your best life. And here's the interesting part, folks. The last slide, we're talking about regrets. That advice, Sarah, is your advice for you now. Live your best life for the next 50 years you've got to live. Yeah. And everybody else who's done this, whatever you said then on that 1 second, that's your internal voice telling you to do this, what it is. Have we got some messages on the chat box?
We've got a couple of messages on the chat. Yeah, we've got thank you, I love you all. Thank you for being part of my life, and a nice little emoji. Forgive, forget, and love with all your heart. That's really nice.
So that's, you got to look back on yourself.
And be yourself. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Be yourself, couple. Do what makes you happy. Yeah. Do things which make you happy. Listen to your heart. 100% travel. Prioritize time over money. I lived well and fulfilled God's life for my life. Try things. Yeah, I like that, Danny. Try things. Yeah. Don't be worried about failing.
Yeah. So
yeah,
all this feedback now, that could be what you're really feeling. And that could be the essence of your goal this year. How are you going to do that? Because that's where you want to go with it all. Or you could just say, you know what, I'm not going to make a goal because 75% of it's going to fail anyway. I'm just going to live my life through this message. And I'm going to look for evidence every day, every week, every month for the next year of how I've achieved that. And maybe some people like me, yeah, they actually do a calculation on this and add them up each day. And I call them my champagne moments. My champagne moments where I'm living my full life of reaching my potential, of being nice and helping and being kind to people, avoiding or dealing with conflict, keeping myself fit and healthy, and they're not alcohol, and just experiencing what it is to be in my prime at 60. Even though we've all got things that are a bit negative, like my knees and ankles and my blue badges as a disability person, but it's getting that context. And if I was doing this, my dad said to me, he said one thing before he died was said, find some happiness. And that's something that I try and do every day, even though it could be a horrible weather. I'm dealing with some people sometimes, oh, it's hard work. And I'm thinking, not today, obviously, but I'm thinking, find some happiness. And that moment then where people hear reflecting on what they want, that's given me some happiness. So Sarah, we're going to take some questions in a second, but if you want to do this slide and then I'll take it off screen, and if people want to talk to me, they can do.
Will do. Thanks very much, Ross. Yeah, really, really excellent and insightful talk. And I really like that deathbed thing. I think it's really useful. And I think the last couple of years have really encouraged a lot of people to reflect on what's important in their lives. You know, you see a lot of people changing jobs and, you know, COVID divorces, and I think it's a good space for us all to think about what's really, really important in our lives. So this is just really talking to you about the support that we can provide in terms of well-being and mental fitness at Kaplan. If you go to the Kaplan website, you'll be able to see the student wellbeing page. There's quite a lot of resources on there, including our student guide to wellbeing, and that will show you around all of the things that we can do to help you. We've also got the Learning My Way microsites. If you are an apprentice, you will have access to those. If you don't, then please contact your talent coach and they will send you the link. If you do have a safeguarding concern whilst you're with us at Kaplan, we have a team of supportive safeguarding representatives, and you can get in touch with them confidentially via the inbox safeguarding@kaplan.co.uk. We have a safeguarding league. One of my colleagues, Nick Kemp, I'm actually part of that team myself, and all of those colleagues of mine, are welcoming, are supportive, and are highly trained, and can help people to, sort of deal with any problems and issues that they're facing. Our next mental fitness session is coming around very soon on the 16th of February at 12 again, and this is going to be covering dealing with conflict, which are a really useful one, so both personal and professional conflicts. So if you are interested in joining us, please do join that via the usual way. And one thing that I would just like to say before Ross takes some questions is to ask you to complete our survey. We always want to get feedback on these sessions, so I'm just going to pop that into the chat panel for you as I'm talking. Just a couple of questions. Really value your feedback. You can do it anonymously if you would like, but it's great to help us be informed for future sessions, and we are very much hoping to continue running these on a monthly basis for as long as we can do. I've really benefited from today. I've scribbled down quite a few notes, quite a few books. We had one of the participants mentioning a book called Monotasking as well, when you were talking about, really focusing on one task. Yeah, that's another takeaway. Carol Dweck is someone who I'm really familiar with, but it's great. We've had 111 at the call today, which is really good. And hopefully, you'll just, I always think if you attend a session or a training session, if you pick up one or two things from it to take away, that is the key to a successful session.
Are there any questions on there for us? So we've got a few minutes left.
Haven't had any so far. Yeah, Emmy has said, is it possible to have the recording? Yeah, the recording will be sent out. I'm going to do something sure that comes across to you.
I'm going to do something a bit different. While I'm waiting for questions now, we've got a few minutes. Anna set everybody a question. Okay. I've got some of my books, which I write. You're probably a bit old. They're for 8 to 12-year-olds. Okay. Well, the reward is one of these books. So I've got a question for you. And it's related to Kaplan. It's related to accountancy. So here's my question. In the book I mentioned, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, 3 slides from the end. He talks in the book about 2 young men, and they were given a choice. And they were given a choice for a month, for 30 days. And the choice was, do you want a penny now, yeah, and have a penny that doubles every day? Or do you want £1 million in your hands now and no more? All right. And most people would probably choose the £1 million now. My question to you is, if you defer gratification, and that was one of our themes today, how much money would you have if your penny doubled every day into 30? Let's go for 30 days. So there's my question for you. Does that make sense, Sarah?
It does. Yeah. I have a couple of questions for you. And
so while you're thinking, you give me the questions and they can interrupt us again.
So we've got a question from Natalie, thanking you for today's session. And she's asked, what is the one decision you took in your life that has had the biggest positive impact, or you are thankful that you did?
Do you know what? Somebody told me this the other day and I didn't register it. And then I thought about it and I think, as much as I don't want to admit it's probably true. And it was stopping drinking. I didn't drink a lot, but it made me contain my weight, not binge eat, because drinking actually accelerated that. Moods were steady. And I felt a great feeling of control. Plus I saved a fortune. So a lot of people now see me doing really well. Having been 25 stone, I'm sort of 15 stone now. And they see how I act and how my work's going and how my life is, and they say drinking. So that's good.
Excellent, thank you. And then Alex has asked, how do we cope with our mental well-being, even when there is a lot to cover for each exam? And you might not have seen our textbooks, Ross, but they are chunky textbooks.
Yeah, well, I've got 3 degrees, and I've gone through that process of being tested and theses and exams and stuff. And I don't know exactly what you're going through, but I've been through something of a similar nature. But what I would say is this: if you don't be aware of it, and awareness is the first key, and then do something not just to protect it, but to make it thrive rather than just survive. I'm using those words very carefully. Then, you might get away with it. But I'm very fortunate. My body tells me when I'm doing something it doesn't like. It gives me immediate feedback, funny beats, irritability. And, those sort of physical things I interpret very quickly to make changes. So how do you deal with it in this difficult situation, this mental compromise? Always put something aside. If you can spend, and it sounds really strange, this half an hour each day doing something just for you, where you're not thinking about the stresses, giving your brain a chance not to keep worrying, to do something you look forward to. So the anticipation of doing something before you do it is building endorphins in our system, is building dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all the good hormones in our body, just thinking about doing something. So having that routine, so we talked about routines before, cue routines and rewards, where you're doing something that's benefiting you. So that's something that I recommend massively.
Thanks, Ross. Okay, so do you want the first person's answer?
Yeah.
That was Natalie. There's quite a few people who've got the same answer. So Natalie's come in at 5,368,709.12.
Right. That sounds interesting. And I haven't got the answer with me, but I know that Sarah, being a high-flying professional and diligent person, will ratify and confirm that at some point and give the answer back to them. Okay. And we'll decide who the winner is, and you'll tell me, and we'll send the book to them. But even if we don't have the winner, into the big difference between 1 million and the 5 million. Yeah. So when we defer things and don't rush into something, good things can happen to us. Yeah, absolutely, Anne. One of the key things I took from the MHVA course was to make time for myself regularly. Let me let you into another secret. Sarah knows this. I love doing crosswords in my car, in a country lay-by. Don't interrupt me for an hour each day. That's what I do. Okay, so that's my little quirky thing that Ross does. Right, we're just going over the time, Sarah, so I'll hand back to you. Is there any more desperate questions? Give them to me now, but I'm handing
just one from Yash. She's put in a question. What was the biggest factor or reason that made you get up from your downfall? And Paul was interested in what your 3 degrees were in.
Yeah, okay, working backwards. PE in Leeds Carnegie, and then I did a master's in Canada in human performance. I had a teaching degree at Southampton University, very specialist stuff. And the first question, what was the first question? Short-term memory loss.
What was the biggest factor, reason which made you get up from your downfall?
Yeah, I tell you what, it was a negative. I keep turning into a positive, and I referenced it briefly at the start. When my parents died, I'm not married, I don't have children. I lost that unconditional support, and I didn't realize how great they were till they passed. And that's probably human nature. We take it for granted. And so I decided then, when they left us, I could be sad all the time, and I get occasional moments and episodes of sadness, but that's why I write my books, to make them proud of me. So that my legacy is to do well with my books, to promote my work. And every time, I don't get nervous really, but if I did get nervous, I just think about my mum and dad. And that's my go-to mechanism to keep producing. But what I've learned as well is what my dad said to me. He said, find some happiness, but slow down a little bit. And I used to go really fast, and I used to have a load of panic attacks a long time ago. And I remember Dad saying to me, just slow down a little bit. And so
I think people are interested in your books, Ross. So, maybe a plug for those, maybe to go to your website, and I'll have a link to that because they will all be on there.
cuppajourney.com. There you go. And I'll even put you at half price, 50% code in there. Okay. So if you go to the website, get my email, say, Ross, I've been on the webinar, I like this book, I'll give you it for half price. How's that? An early Easter present.
Excellent. Now we are quite a bit over time now, so I'm going to wrap up the session. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time today. It's been a really, really interesting session, and thank you for giving your time. I hope that you've taken one or two things away of benefit. Thank you, Ross. Again, fantastic session. Look forward to seeing you on the 16th of February, and look forward to seeing many of you as well on the next session. Thanks very much. Bye now.
Thanks, guys. I love those messages coming in, those chats. 100 chats, that shows engagement. You know, that's a good team effort. Yeah. And like you said, Sarah, just take one thing away, one or two things away. Brilliant.